Om Devata Mama Chatur Varga Sadhane Chappe Vinyoga Om Pranavo Meshira Patu Talaka Brahma Rupaka Devata Mama Chatur Varga Sadhane Chappe Vinyoga Om Pranavo Meshira Patu Talaka Brahma Rupaka Brahmaka Talaka Brahma Rupaka. Great to see you all. Well, you're seeing me. This is recorded a little bit later than I anticipated. It's Sunday, March 5th, 2023, and I'm so excited to offer this sort of intro to the month here for all of my beloved patrons, old and new. Welcome, welcome. I just read to you, let's do screen share here, the Uchara invocation from one of the many tantras that give such invocations to this fundamental practice of the tantras in terms of the Kundalini system of yoga. And yeah, let's go here. And so here it is behind me somewhere, right there, the invocation to the Om rising practice. And this invocation is symbolic of something very special that I have to announce tonight, and that I'll have more info on in the weeks to come. But we're going to take a look at the restructuring of our tier level. And if you're a new member, this is pretty much the best time you could have joined. And if you're a member that's been with us for a while, you've probably noticed that this is a tier level, this so-called Uchara practice that's been kind of lingering in the wings, ready to roll out as a tier level. And it is rolling out now, right? So those of you that have had experience with the Uchara practice, I first brought it out in a modified form that, after great meditation and consultation with the texts that I was reading at the time, 10 years ago, the Kalottara Tantra specifically, and several sister texts from the 6th century and later, all produce this fundamental Kundalini practice, which is the practice of the Kundalini yoga system, by which I mean not some modern Yogi Bhajan school Kundalini yoga. Before that had a TM next to it. That is a phrase, yoga meaning the application as the second word in a compound of the first word. Application, or the engagement of the Kundalini power, which is really to say calling it forth or calling it down, as you see here in this image, down to the third eye, and then circling this power back up as a sonic elevation practice called Uchara. Uchara is the piercing sound needle, as it's called, the Nada Suchi in the Kalottara Tantra, that threads together the lotuses that we call the chakras. And those lotuses represent not actual flowers in your body, but this is symbolic of the sound here, of that last tone, not just in the pranava Om syllable that's practiced in Uchara, but specifically and most potently in the 5 inflections of the Om pranava. And that, of course, consists of the 5 chakra seed mantras in their original form, not the incorrect forms that we've gotten from Arthur Avalon's Serpent Power. And this sound needle culminates in this, what I call euphemistically, and what the text called the beehive sound, because the final tone, that M with a dot, is not the labial lips consonants, right? There's no, this tone is a vowel. It's the fundamental vowel of all vowels, and vowels are defined by anahata. They are not struck, or they are not made by parts of your mouth striking, like the lips touching. Those are called consonants, because to be an omnipresent tone, that is the vibration, the Brahma Vidya Shakti, the power of Brahman, the absolute. It can't ever have a beginning or an end. And when we make sounds that are generated or that culminate in touching at the lips or the palate, tongue hitting the teeth, dental consonants, et cetera, or the palatal consonants, you, bam, strike the sound and eliminate it, like playing a singing bowl and grabbing the side of the bowl. So hung sounds like a bee, and that's where the image comes from of chakras as lotuses. They are asana thrones, or seats for the bee to rest on as you drive the sound needle up the central channel and recreating the central channel here at the third eye and calling that Kundalini power, that whirling power of the universe that drops down through the center of the skull, as we see here in the latest photo for our newest updated tier, if it loads. Yes, here we go. Oh, I think I am signed in as a customer here. Let's see. Yep, wrong one. There we go. Okay, so what I want to introduce first of all, and this is a novel thing. Let's actually see if I can join. I want to make this bigger. No, it doesn't work like that. We'll have to do it like this, and I'll zoom in. Okay. Boom, 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 boom. As widely anticipated, we're going to start a closed group of biweekly Uchara practice. I've dropped the cost. It was kind of tentatively going to be $75 a month. We'll talk about where the money goes for any of these tiers in just a moment, because I have some important updates on that. But basically, we're going to begin this biweekly practice that you can read about on your own time. Here's a little bit of introductory information. And there's 2 stages. Even if you've done the practice in various webinars with me or on your own, or through my recordings, or one of my student teachers may have taught you the basic practice, nonetheless, you sign up for this tier, and for the first week, or you need to do at least 1 week of continual practice, at least once a day, before jumping to stage 2, which is the bi-weekly practice sessions. More on that in a second. Sorry, this is kind of like way over here on the right. It's the best I can do. Well, let's make it a little prettier by adding these images here. Okay, there we go. All right, a little bit of nice and relevant eye candy there. Where'd you go? Okay, so this again is what it looks like. So commitment to my pre-recorded basic Uchara practice, which is basically working with the pranava Om and the core vowels of Om. This is Uchara one-on-one. It's a video, and it comes with an instruction manual for self-study, although I'm here to guide you and answer questions during that initial week. It could be a week of your choice, but ultimately, at the end of that, if you're going to be at this tier and sign up, then you will book a consultation with me, a Zoom consultation session through the Calendly app. This will be hyperlinked. It is hyperlinked now. Okay, great. And we will review your practice, refine any technical aspects of it, and also answer your questions, right, in this session. And then you'll be ready for stage 2. Stage 2 is an ongoing bi-weekly practice and plus satsang, where I will post on the first and third Sundays of each month in the morning a new pre-recorded Uchara practice. So for 6 months, and this is why there's going to be a cutoff of March 22nd to join, because we're going to just be closed for 6 months so we can progress through the stages of the practice as a group, starting at the basic level, which is segueing from the basic practice and culminating with more and more detail each session. So you'll receive a recording each Sunday morning, the first and third Sunday mornings of each month. And that evening, the same Sundays, from 5 to 6 Pacific time, I will open online for you to join, of course, and you're encouraged to join a satsang discussion group for practitioners to share experiences and questions about our practice. So this is a very, very sacred opportunity that I don't take lightly, and I ask for only serious, dedicated students. I should add logistically here a couple things, which is that the reason why it's pre-recorded, the session that you receive every other Sunday, is because of 2 reasons. One, not everybody will be able to make a live session recording or a live session practice. And even if we could all meet at the same time without any hiccups in the calendar, the sound isn't appropriate, at least in this stage of technology that we have, to really sync a practice at the same time with vocalization, right? So it'll be pre-recorded, but you will have an opportunity that, as I said, that very night to join our discussion group and to review the new session or the one you've been doing the week before, right? Any questions you have, you could shoot me a note here at Patreon and I will answer to the best of my ability. Okay, so that's the Uchara practice. It's now posted. I dropped it to 55 a month. This is brand new. A couple of other updates here before we get into my post from the 1st of March. The monthly webinar is now back in full swing. And so our next webinar, if you're at the $40 tier per month, will be as I was saying, I hit pause there for a second. Our next webinar and first webinar in a while, monthly webinar will be here on, oh, wrong date. Sorry. We'll be here on Sunday, March 19th. I'll even put it in with you at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Okay. So this is going to be on March 19th. And I'm very excited about this particular webinar for a number of reasons that we'll get into in a moment. But first of all, here you can see this is the Truth Seeker tier for monthly webinar. To join our webinar, you'll have to be at this tier level. Of course, there's continually the opportunity for our personal mentorship by signing up through the Calendly app. If you're new to Patreon this month, then your first session you get no matter what tier level you're at. So you simply, in fact, you got this in the welcome email, right? But you can conveniently schedule your mentoring session in advance. And what else? So we're also going to be receiving, as promised here at the $10 tier, new translations, which are ostensibly now going to be part of an article series that's going to turn into my published PhD. And I'm very excited about this because I'm going to be able to take you along with me as I zoom in on a particular and very fundamental part of the PhD now being transformed into something more palatable for the general public. And that is the doctrine of subtle body time, which is absolutely fundamental to understanding this yoga and even the Uchara practice on a technical level. Although we don't need to know this doctrine in order to practice, it is a doctrine that guides the practitioner exactly how to work the Kundalini practice. And it's based on, you saw this image in my last post, it's based on a very, very, very brilliant, fascinating, and accurate superimposition of the cycle of the year in terms of the months or the astrological signs, right? The signs of the zodiac, the 12 signs, superimposed along the channel of the subtle breath, ranging from the heart and through the physical range of breath to the nostrils, but up beyond that to the subtle breath, meaning without air, up to the so-called 12 end or Dwada Shanta. This is one of many inaccurate, but kind of prop-based images of the subtle body. Inaccurate meaning this one's close to accurate, but there's basically no drawing of the subtle body that matches what I'm seeing universally in these texts. Here's the point: the granthis, or the lotuses, or the sections of this breath range from the heart to the crown of the head, represents an upward movement. The months from winter solstice to summer solstice spanned out, right? As if the earth revolving, right, around the sun, and the sun's place in the galaxy, and basically our movement from our perspective on earth around or through the 12 signs of the zodiac. You see one of the Sanskrit images, beautiful painting behind me on my left of this. And we'll look at this in our webinar. But basically, winter solstice to summer solstice, and then the in-breath, subtle in-breath, summer solstice down to winter solstice, so that the months, here they are: Cancer, Karkata, Gemini, Mithuna, Vrisha is the bull, etc. Aries. Quiet puppy, right? all the way down to the heart center. So the 12 signs of the zodiac are spaced out according to finger breadths. These are called angulas, and there are 36 angulas. If you take your thumb out and do the four fingers of each hand and stack them on top of each other to the crown of the head, 36. So these months in the text are spanned out according to the space of fingers. Now, this is important because even though this is, a sort of poetic superimposition of macrocosmic time onto the subtle body, what you have is a very precise science of how to move breath and sound according to angulas and dates. And also, in addition to this, let's actually look at the spreadsheet. That is definitely work in progress, and hopefully you all can help me, right? Here's another image I have here. Here we see the 27 nakshatras or asterisms, the lunar asterisms that also follow the trajectory or spanned out amongst the 12 signs of the zodiac. For example, here, and here's one of the main issues I have here. As I said, these images that have been made by various scholars and their artists of the subtle body are not completely accurate. We need to make one. I need help from you guys and friends that you might have who are good at graphic design. We need to redraw the subtle body and work it so that these lines match up with the finger. Angula means finger breath point, and the so-called months, right? That literally coalesce the months and the 27 asterisms according to this trajectory of the subtle breath from the heart upward. You can see that this isn't even a scale because we would really have to stretch this out or make this spreadsheet shorter, not as tall and stretched out, so that these terms can match up to the body placement that they're referred to, right? So this is Mesha is at the palate, not all the way down here. If this doesn't make any sense, that's fine. You can check out my Kala Chakra series, which is part of our recorded webinar, I think from 2 or 3 years ago in January. Kala Chakra means the wheel of time, and it's the fundamental basis for this system of yoga that's pan-tantric, right? So I'm working on this, and I really need help from the world of artists, those who can draw, those who want to actually help me bring this to light in terms of making proper tables, so we can insert all these designations from the Kalottara Tantra into charts and templates that correspond to the proper drawing of the subtle body. That's what we need to do. This is what I'm going to be working on. And in terms of where were we here? The immersing in the teachings, new translations, what I'm going to be showing you is translations and scholarly work that will be the written work that I'm trying to put together between now, which is obviously early March, all the way until the summer solstice. And the reason for that, which you may or may not have intuited here, is that in the subtle body, if Karkata Cancer, this is right, this is basically July after the summer solstice, at the very top of the range of the breath in the subtle body, we're basically right around here. If we start in the heart at winter solstice and we go all the way to summer solstice right around here, we're actually right below the palate. And this is real calendar time now, superimposed, moving up in the Uchara practice. So what I want to do, and I haven't quite worked this out, but I'm going to be posting a calendar which denotes the days and parts of the month in the original text by authors such as Abhinavagupta and Kshemaraja, where they designate, on the 9th day of Mithuna, this is when the light of the third eye opens up. They're talking about actual placement in the subtle body that's based on the mapping of Mithuna this month, right? That'll be coming up in a couple months from now. This is the target, for example, of where you see the Kundalini, right at the scalp line, the light flash, that's the squiggle or the Kutila flash that appears in Uchara. They don't say, oh, just here in the middle of the forehead. They say on the 9th night of Mithuna at this hour, et cetera, et cetera. And they're talking about moments that we can look up on the astrological calendar, right? And even put in some of the templates that are available online. The actual moment that this happens in Kashmir, where these authors are writing from back in the day. But what we're really doing is looking at the sky map, and then again, tracking these dates in our calendar and noting what's happening with the sound practice at that time, that date in the subtle body. So what I want to try to do as best as I can is make postings that translate passages that denote these dates on the dates they are going to happen in the next 6 months. Okay. So here's a better version of the Uchara thing. You guys can look it up from your end, the page we're just looking at, the sign up page. So that's what you can expect at the $10 level. And this will lead up to our webinar, as I said, on the 19th of March. That's 2 Sundays from now. So this will be 6 p.m. And as usual, if you can't make it live, you'll have access to the recording afterward. But you have 2 weeks to consider that. And so that webinar will summarize the postings that I'm making on the subtle body time stuff between now and that Sunday. There should be a couple of posts, translated passages, really exciting stuff. And exciting for another reason. I want to kind of shift gears for a moment and show you, first of all, what I'm doing on the side, which is partly an honest testimony as to why it's been a little bit tough for me to navigate regular presence on Patreon, which is now no longer going to be the case. This is what I'm teaching at UC Berkeley. And as it turns out, I have not 2 sections of this course, which is part 2 of my ongoing Evolution History of Yoga series at UC Berkeley. But I had a 3rd section added. And long story short, I was supposed to have about 40 students and an assistant to help grade, and I have 58. Wow. So for example, 5-page paper was turned in yesterday. That's 58 students. You know, you could pretty much cancel out everything else that you are doing if you're me, because it takes a long time to grade, critically grade, helping these students in this course to learn both the material and how to write professionally, right? Or as college students. The bad news is this has taken a lot more of my time than I anticipated. The good news is I've now hired a wonderful assistant who I've worked with before, and she's going to be grading half of the papers. What this means for you is several things, but mostly it means more time with me because I've had some time freed up here. Meanwhile, I mentioned this briefly some time ago, but I'm not sure if it was I think it was in a posting at the beginning of maybe last month. If you haven't seen or heard of the Kashmir Files, I highly recommend it. A film directed by Vivek Agnihotri and starring his co-producer's wife, Pallavi Joshi. This film, as dramatic as it looks, has really won the hearts over of many, many people in India, and has almost shockingly helped heal the rift between the Kashmiris, who are now the Kashmir Pundits or Hindus, who are the ancestors, or the whose ancestors are the tantric masters that are teaching us through these courses here on Patreon, right? Their descendants, is that right? Yeah, their descendants are the Kashmiri pundits or learned ones who went into exile in 1990 from their homeland due to religious tension in the area. Well, now this film, which is funded by my good friends at the Kashmir Overseas Pundit Society, right? Surinder Kaul and Rakesh Kaul, has had such a wonderful effect in healing some of the wounds that last I heard, Surinder was up for a Nobel Peace Prize. He funded this film, right? And so I had the great good fortune to receive a call from Surinder asking for a meeting with me and the director, Vivek Agnihotri and Pallavi Joshi. And it was actually with Pallavi. And they want to do a documentary series on the kind of bright side of Kashmir, which is what was it like 1,000 years ago with these tantrics. And I'm so honored they chose me to do the docu-series. And so I'm meeting Mrs. Joshi. Where is she here? right here, Paul V. Joshi in April. And we've already had a few Zooms, and I've also been promised, and this is kind of the key takeaway, from Surinder Kaul, a stipend or a fund, perhaps an endowment, in which to teach and share and will basically teach new scholars how to navigate this 8 terabytes of Sanskrit, mainly Kashmir-based Sharda script manuscripts that have been scanned, photographed, and collected by my colleague Chetan Pandey painstakingly over the last 10 years and handed off to me here on these 2 hard drives in August. In other words, I have this massive collection of texts and manuals on this practice we're talking about. And this will be an opportunity with funding from the producers of this film and guided by Surinderji to really make a mark here and get people reading these texts, cataloging them, and then of course eventually transcribing them so they're more accessible through e-text searches online instead of just looking at squiggle marks on a manuscript that you can't search through. So here's my point. I want to put together, before I meet Ms. Joshi in April, a template or a proposal rather for an endowment fund that's obviously has to be well written and constructed. But even more important than that, I have to be mindful of the fact that I need to produce publicly some of the writing of my work on the Kundalini practice that I haven't done so far. And the most exciting and important aspect of this practice that I have not published on, although I've taught it informally here based on my PhD, is this business with the subtle body time work. And in a sense, this is the most brilliant takeaway from this legacy of 1,000 years ago in Kashmir, is this mastery of scientific mastery of the cycles of cosmological time over many eons and many time cycles. And in fact, partially influenced by the Greeks, the Kashmiris really were at the apex of the science of the stars in terms of the knowledge of astronomy and astrology in ancient India. And this is basically unknown now. So this is a great way to promote the legacy and power and beauty, not just of the yoga practices, but also of the sciences that affected this yoga practice in ancient Kashmir. So this is what our webinar will be on. I haven't named it yet. Kaladikara means studenthood in the doctrine of Kala, time. And this is a very fundamental term, Kaladikara, or I should say it's a synonym, believe it or not, for the phrase Kundalini Vidhi or yoga practice, because that practice is based on a knowledge of how the intricate points in the subtle body and the breath channel are mapped out for the sound practice, as we were just discussing. So this is what you're contributing to. Next, I want to talk about where this money is going and actually make another request. All the money that I'm getting now is ostensibly nonprofit because I need to use the funds that you all are so generously donating here for these gifts and with so much patience to hiring assistants. First of all, I need somewhat urgently, without any nervousness, I need to hire a manager for the Patreon page who can keep up with the copy and the changes and the edits and respond or alert me to emails and messages from you guys while I'm teaching at Berkeley. If I can get that, this is going to be a smooth ship from now on. So if you'd like to volunteer to manage this page in exchange for a trade, free membership at the very least, and depending on your proficiency time and how much you can put in, I'll pay going market wages for this kind of management of a site. So if that interests you, or if you know someone who would be interested, preferably somebody that has a vague knowledge of my work or these topics, very vague, please let me know as soon as possible. Otherwise, I'll start reaching out, outside of this community. But I'd like to start here at that request. So all the money I get now from you all, and I most humbly request that if you've been wanting to go into a deeper dive, now is the time. Because the money here will also pay for the assistant I hired to help grade these papers, right? I have to pay her, the going market rate for that. And that's going to be, a good amount of money per month that otherwise has to come out of my paycheck, which is not that great, not that high yet. So that would be awesome because any money that comes into here will help pay for, again, an assistant to help run the Patreon page and pay for my assistant already set up to help me teach the Cal Berkeley class. And with that, I think that's all I had for today. Let's check my list. So please mark the dates, and when I post this video, I'll add them in the text box. So 2 Sundays from tonight is our webinar. Between now and then, you can expect immersing in the teachings posting based on the kind of build up to the webinar publications to be, but articles that we'll edit through together, perhaps, articles and passages on the subtle body time. And that, of course, leads me to remind you of my request also that I mentioned earlier, kind of in passing. Anybody who has skills at making charts and graphs and would like to get involved with putting this business into a more formal format where we can trace these columns over to the appropriate places in the subtle body based on passages from 2 different major tantras. I would highly, highly appreciate that, right? That's something that I don't have time to do. And here are some of the time cycles, not just the 12 signs of the zodiac, which is what these are here: Makara, Kumbha, Minas, Pisces, Mesha, right? Aries, Vrisha the bull, Taurus, et cetera, et cetera. Dandvi is Sagittarius, Vrishika is Scorpio, right? But also, and here you see the breath cycle, in the location, Samkranti passage. So we're basing this system and this charting that I want to do off of these passages from the Swachanda Tantra, one of the most formative tantras in Kashmir, 6th or 7th century, the Tantra Loka of Abhinavagupta, the great master, and the Kalutra Tantra as well. All of these teach the same mapped subtle body science of the so-called Kalalikara time. Very exciting stuff, but it's going to be a lot better once we see it mapped out on charts. So if you're good at charts and you want to help, and/or you're an artist or know of an artist to help draw the original subtle body, nobody's ever seen it, with this mapping associated with it, please reach out as well. So in short, need volunteers, paid volunteers or exchange volunteers to help manage Patreon page, to help pay my assistant at Cal and for my courses, and graphic design artists and/or those of you who may be proficient at making tables, charts, and drawing a new subtle body. That way I can just focus on the raw Sanskrit, right? And just the translation and the my summaries of these passages. So with that, I want to welcome everybody new and welcome everybody who's been with me and kind of waiting for this to come out, particularly the Uchara practice. Please consider joining. The deadline is going to be March 22nd for joining this tier. It's an isolated tier, so it's not inclusive to the other tiers that are higher per month. So if you're in the $108 tier, it doesn't automatically get you this tier, because this is a real dedication. Not that it's a time-consuming one. It's a 30-minute practice per day. I first recommend that you look through this Uchara practice playlist, very short clips of what this is all about. And with that, I thank you so much for being with me. Please send in any suggestions that you might like. As soon as we get a manager, an admin person, we're going to work out all of the kinks to the links that may or may not be working for you. I think most of them are now, but if you have any problems accessing any particular class or webinar, if you're at the $40 tier level recording, please send me a note here so that our messages are all in one place. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May this be the best year ever for the unveiling of these teachings and practices. I can't do it alone, and it's almost irresponsible of me to be doing this. without your help, because there's so much stuff here. There's so much material that can really change the consciousness of the world. And you are involved in that just by being here. Okay. So get ready for some new posts. They'll be scattered in the next couple of weeks, leading up to the webinar on Kaladikara, the science of time in the Kundalini yoga practice of the Tantrics. Namaskara, and thank you so much, all of you. I so appreciate you.